Greetings, everyone. This is Dr. Maylo. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and I'm so happy to be here again. You are all welcome to join our free Crystal Village community and network with us. Just go to MAATCrystalVillage.com. You can access either on your computer or download the app by the same name on an Android phone from the Google Play Store. This is the last week on our 4-part series of Image and Colorism. And in this episode, I call it, Is There Life Outside the Color Box? I remember Dick Gregory from a long time ago. He was an author, actor, comedian, educator, activist. I remember him saying that on his job applications, he would put, when they asked for race, he would put off-white. And then he said that when he went to the interview, then they could decide just how off-white he was. Well, we saw from last week that colorism evolved from racism and is in and of itself a form of racism. As promised, let's see if we can clearly and succinctly define racism and racist. Okay. We've already defined the word race in the context in which we are using it. Now, the reason context is so important is it eliminates confusion and keeps us on track. So here's an example of what I mean. Now, here are 3 complete sentences from the Bible that are attributed to Jesus. Judas went out and hung himself. Go and do likewise. And what you do, do quickly. Now, if you were to read them that way, you would believe that Jesus wanted you to hang yourself like Judas and do it without delay. But the sentences are all taken out of context. Neither of the texts are even in the same books of the Bible, let alone in the same verses. And this tells us that any text taken out of context is a pretext. And a pretext is a false reason or excuse used to hide the true motive or intention. This is only useful to attorneys, politicians, car salesmen, and car saleswomen, okay, and con men and con women, of which we are neither. So when we say race, we're talking about the ethnic group. So where did the word racism come from? Where did it originate? It's always important, to look at the origins and beginnings of something, and that way you can possibly explain how and why it evolved. What you see on the screen is Brigadier General Richard Henry Pratt. He was a United States Army officer who founded the Carlisle Indian Industrial School in Pennsylvania in 1879, and he served as its longtime superintendent. Now, prior to this, Pratt supervised the Native American prisoners of war who were held at Fort Marion in St. Augustine, Florida. So he's known for saying, kill the Indian, save the man. But he was referencing the ethos of the school and efforts to forcibly assimilate the Native Americans into quote unquote white American culture. He's also associated with the first recorded of the word racism. Okay. He used in 1902 to criticize racial segregation in the United States. And this, what you see on screen, is what he had to say. Segregating any class or race of people apart from the rest of the people kills the progress of the segregated people or makes their growth very slow. Association of races and classes is necessary to destroy racism and classism. You have to understand that when Pratt said progress, he meant the delivery of European culture, as has been done for centuries. Okay. So you would think that forced segregation ended 60 years ago, right? And that there's no more racism and classism. Well, I beg to differ. Not only does racism and classism still exist, but both are thriving well, and not only to the detriment of melanated people, but a detriment to the whole planet. Now, the suffix ism is used to form nouns that denote a system of thought, belief, a practice, and is often referred to the specific ideology or movement or philosophy. Okay. They say it's derived from the ancient Greek suffix ismos. I want to make sure that you put everything in perspective. We're looking at things for the moment through the eyes of European culture, European history, European research, etc. So just make an internal note that what when they say it was derived from Greek, Latin, etc., it actually came from the African ancestors, the Native American ancestors, which are the same people, believe it or not, okay, just two different continents, and learned scholars in ancient Mesopotamia, Ethiopia, and from a lot of papyri and books in the Timbuktu. Yes, those of you who were born 20, 30 years ago, yes, Timbuktu was a real place. Okay, it was a school. And it was from the inscriptions in the pyramids and within the pyramids and the mounds built here in America. In fact, our ancestors' footprints and DNA are all over the world. You cannot get rid of them. They have tried and keep trying and will never be able to do so. Matter is neither created nor destroyed. It just changes forms, frequencies, and wavelengths, and then keeps on moving. Okay. Now, here's some examples of that ism: capitalism, a system of economics; feminism, a social movement advocating for women's rights; and realism, a style in art and literature. Okay. So let's take a look at the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition of racism. 1, a belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. And then 2, the systemic oppression of a racial group due to the social, economic, and political advantage of another, such as Trumpism, egotism, fanaticism. Those are another good examples of using the ism. Now let's look at the suffix ist, okay, because we were talking about being a racist. Now this transforms a word into a noun referring to a person who performs a specific action, makes or produces something, specializes in a particular field, or adheres to a doctrine or a system. So that's pretty easy. Examples like dentist, person who practices dentistry; a masochist, a person who likes to inflict pain or have pain inflicted on themselves; and a pessimist, a person who tends to look at the negative side of things. So if we go back to that definition again, remember, a belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities. Racial differences produce an inherent superiority, so they believe that, okay? And the systemic oppression of a racial group to the socioeconomic advantage of another group. So I ask you, can quote unquote Black people, my words are melanated, but can Black people be guilty of racism or be racist? And I'll leave that to you to decide based on the definitions.